Hello and welcome to another Taphocles Battle Report, and today my good friend Roger and I are playing a game of To the Strongest. It's the end of January 2017 and we're right on the deadline for getting our army lists in, so this is probably our last practice game before the tournament and a chance to check out what we're going to do and finalise our lists. And I have to say, this game is really growing on me. I mean, it is a very simple game to pick up, great game to get new people playing, but surprisingly subtle. It's surprising how much tactics comes into it and movement. Obviously there's luck involved, but isn't there always? That's part of war. Yeah, it's a very exciting game, really growing on me. Really looking forward to the tournament. I'll be putting all those reports up as soon as possible. I think Roger's got his army more or less off pat, and we'll see what I'm doing with mine. So I've still only, well, this is like my second or third game of To the Strongest using Romans, so I'm still getting to grips with what they can do. So I thought I'd give the elephants a try. They look very cheap on the army lists, only 6 points. I've got 2 units of light cavalry, you can see in the middle there. They've both got javelins. And I've got 2 units of the Roman cavalry, sort of heavy cavalry. Pretty average. They do have javelins to throw, which I don't think I ever do, or hardly ever. And you can see they've got their mounted commander with them. Now my 2 commands of legions. What I've learned from my practice games is you really need to split the legionaries so that they you've got more activations to use them. Basically, they are the linchpin of this army. They're very powerful. They do a rock hard armor save. It's 6, 5 for the veterans. So that means every time they get hit, you've got a more than even chance of saving it, which makes them very tough. It also helps you with rallying them, recovering the wounds afterwards. So that's a gift that keeps on giving. They've got the Pilum, which is not a gift that keeps on giving. It's an extra attack once per game. And it's a throwing attack, so you're hitting on an 8. So it's like a lance, so you're not as good because a lance, you get the extra attack hitting on a 6, of course. But the real key with the Romans, what makes them worth every point, all that other stuff is free in my book, it's the manoeuvrability. The fact that they can make difficult manoeuvres, move diagonally, sideways or backwards, as a normal movement. So you can see here one of my commands, basically on the army list you're going to get 6 units of legionaries. I even think they're going up to 7 if I can, because they're so good. So I've got my trusty dwarves there, they're acting as legionaries today for this battle. I am painting more Romans as quickly as I can. I've got some beautiful figures from Aventine I'm trying to get ready for the tournament. But for this game the Romans get another, the dwarf Romans get another run out, this time as legionaries. They've been around for so long in my collection. They've played almost every game system. It almost seems a shame not to take them. The guys at the front are javelins. They're not really light, but they're a little bit different to the legionaries. And of course you can see 3 units of legionaries. The guys at the back with the red cloaks are the veterans. And here's the third command, more of the same really. I should also point out the legionary commands have both got an attached foot commander, the cheapest one possible there. So it's 3 more legionaries. I think one of them might have been upgraded to veteran, not sure. And I've got the javelins at the front. So that's more or less the same as the other command. The difference is I think these got the light infantry, which you can't see on the picture. And their job is going to be to defend the camp. So there's the shot of the new cloth. How about that, eh? No expense spared for this channel. And what I've done to mark out the squares is use flocking and tufts and little bits of stones and things like that. So it looks very grid-like this far away. As you get nearer to it and play on it, some of the clumps are bigger than others and all that kind of thing. So I rather like it. And hopefully makes it easier to follow on the photographs because you can clearly see the grid pattern. So we've both plonked down quite a lot of terrain, scenery. And one of the things that was the river, I can't remember if it was me or Roger put the river down. One of us was looking to narrow the game anyway. I was looking back at the reports from last year's World Championships and remembered use rivers a lot then. And I'm thinking with the toughness of the Romans, maybe it's worth it. But I do like their manoeuvrability. So anyway, here we go. Roger's attempting there. The Chinese are opposite, putting up that row of hills. The idea is got those units. They're large units. They're difficult to destroy. They also shoot. If they're on top of the hill, they get that +1 on their save. So all in all, they're going to be tough to shift off there. And he gives them a solid base. And he's got some very powerful cavalry with the lance, the fire lance cavalry, which get their extra dice, or the extra card, sorry, when they first contact. And they're pretty tough. So a lot of tough stuff. A lot of shooting. Looking for a solid base there. And I guess with the river, he can anchor that position. and then just take me on frontally, really. But of course, the magic of two the strongest. You play the cards, diamonds remove terrain, and loads disappeared, and it's looking a lot more open. There's a couple, the rocks you see, great project with the children, by the way. Get some pebbles off the beach and set them, get the hot glue gun out, put them on the card, add some flock and basing and whatever, and some gunk as we call it. Have a great time, and you got some nice pieces of terrain that fit nicely on this table. So we got the woods on the left. The left is looking very chocker to my mind. Well, it just is. Lots of difficult terrain, which the Romans really don't like. I haven't got anything that's any good in there. I'm looking forward to them inventing auxiliaries. I need them. I hope they get a bonus in that difficult terrain. But for the Marian Romans, we just like open battlefields, and the way they maneuver makes that particularly important. And what I like to have is a couple of impassables dotted around the middle, because for one, it can cover a flank, and for two, the Romans can dance around it, whereas large armies can have real problems trying to maneuver around them, especially deep units. So that's what we've ended up with. And I've drawn my stratagem card, and you can pause and read that. What it basically means is a unit gets lost and comes on later in the battle, and it looks like a real disadvantage because it's a random sector. And looking at it now, I mean, it's pretty clear it's one of my units, but reading it we thought, well, maybe it could be you make one of the opponent's units come on late, because it's just a liability. And some of the strategy cards are excellent. So we had a chat about it, we weren't sure, and Roger very generously let me draw another card. And I drew the ambush card, which is great, because that lets me hide a light unit or cavalry, whatever, in woods or difficult terrain or hills on my side of the table, of which I have none at all. So thanks for that. Okay, so we get on to deployment. The Chinese have deployed at the top of the table, as you can see, filling most of the table. They actually deployed first. And the cavalry up on the far left-hand corner is going to try and sweep round, obviously, and harry my flanks. But I'm thinking that, see, the difference in our two philosophies is I have the all cavalry command, with a view to them being a strike force, whereas their opponent here has gone for the more mixed commands, where the cavalry get supported by infantry. I think that sort of ties in the cavalry a bit. But I know from the last game it can be powerful when you are fighting a cavalry melee and some infantry in there throwing javelins and piling in and stuff. That's the main difference. It's got the big units in the middle to hold the one hill and whatever left to the side of that, I guess. And I'm looking at that thinking that left side looks tough, really tough. The terrain is bad for me. The hills are bad. Large units, a whole command over on the left flank. I'm just going to try and ignore it. I'm just going to do my best to keep well away from it and try and win the battle over this side. Now, one of the things you'll notice, I double up the legionaries, taking advantage of their diagonal move. So what you can then do is advance, and when you're ready to, you can advance the whole block diagonally. So I've got great flexibility by putting my army in the middle. I can really go flying off to the left, to the right, straight ahead, widen the line to fill the distance, or go for a punch through. So that's why I love this army. It looks very small on the table though, especially when there's an army with a lot of figures facing you. It's quite intimidating, and I'm still putting 4 or 5 figures on a base, doesn't help. So the Chinese start to move up on the far left. The cavalry's whiz round that wood. Units are moving through the wood, up onto the hills. And I'm thinking, that lot's got a long walk. I hope they don't get great cards, because I'd like them to stay out of the game, please. And I'm going to head straight ahead, or slightly to the right even, and then hope my cavalry can do something on the far right, or just punch a hole through the middle in unsubtle Roman style. Straight up and at 'em, boys. So you can see the overall situation there. I pushed up as far as I can, and I run into that rock on the right, you see, but also I've got the rock on the left. It's worked out quite nicely, because I've got the legions sitting there on the left hand side with impassable terrain covering their left flank. They'll take on anything to the front. It's a long way around to get behind them, because that field's there as well, so that's worked out nicely. I've got 2 more units in the middle, and I'm going to try my best to be restrained and hold those back while I try and do damage on the right, and see how that goes first. So left, you see some Chinese whizzing around. This cavalry's coming around very quickly around the flank, which is not what I want to see. I've got nothing that can deal with it at all, apart from crossing my fingers. and maybe forming an orbis with those legionaries to stop them getting bumped off. But then they're not doing anything, you know. So I'm just, hopefully the rock, with my 2 legions, there's 2 more rocks. I'm just going to block off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units, something like that, 7 or 8 units. Good luck, boys. On the other side of the table, of course, with so many on that side taking out the game, I've got a majority, so I'm pushing up. I'm going to push up as quickly as I can to try and get some success over here. So here you see the right-hand flank, and Roger's taking the chance to get those light infantry into that wood, and they are an absolute pain. They're getting like +3 on their save rolls. It's really hard to dislodge them. I've got nothing really suitable. It's a good note to me. I want to make sure there's as little of that kind of stuff on the table as possible in the tournament. No putting any random rough terrain out. It's just a nuisance for me. Impassable's fine because I can go round it, and it's the same for everybody. Anyway, so the light cavalry had to go first. They've ridden up and thrown the javelins, which I'm not sure they should have done. I think only foot can move and throw. But anyway, they missed, so all I've done is wasted javelin. And I've got the cavalry below them there, the proper cavalry, next to the elephants. They're the ones who's going to go in. They should go in with the general as well, so they're getting the reroll. So the heavy cavalry's gone barreling in on the right. They haven't managed to land a blow. They've evaded back. And I managed to sneak the light cavalry in behind that wood. And this is where you see the disadvantage of sharing a box with the cavalry and the infantry, because now the cavalry can't actually turn to make the flank charge, because you can't have 2 at right angles. I mean, one option could have worked possibly is to push that central Chinese infantry unit forward alongside the wood, hope for another activation to turn the cavalry, and then charge in the flank. That could have been quite devastating. Okay, back over to the left-hand side, and you can see I've used discretion as a better part of valor. I've traded off a bit of space for time. Those 2 units on the left are looking very, very isolated. The problem is I have left a little bit of a gap in my line, the unit next to the impassable, because I am starting to push up on this side. So whether we're getting shot off the hills is a difficult decision. So meanwhile, through the middle now, the veterans have gone smashing through. A couple, I think, is it 3, 4 activations? With all those activations, the Pilum hitting, finally they got through. I think I had a hero in there as well, and they bashed their way through with a hole in the centre, which is great news. It's also forced the Legion to their left to come up, otherwise going to have an exposed flank. There's already an exposed flank now for those javelins on the right. You can see that the decision Roger took was to move the cavalry back 1, which makes better sense than what I was saying about pushing the javelins forwards, because now my legionaries will be around the flank of his cavalry, and where they are now they're not. But still, it is a breakthrough. I've just got to push up and capitalise on that. So the unit that's pushing up in support of the breakthrough unit. Mainly, I didn't expect to get an attack in, or even want to attack necessarily. I want to get a zone of control on those guys to stop them turning into the flank of my legionaries. Because if they're free for a turn, they can turn either way and do a flank attack and take one out. So I've just parked them there. They've been shot at them by the Chinese and failed a save, and he got a bit nervy and just didn't quite get destroyed, because they've got the attack coming in from the top left as well. So you see I had to play 3 cards there. And they just about held on, and the 10 actually was me rallying them again. As you can see, then this was the moment. This is when it kicks you in the teeth. You can see a big fat ace in the middle of the table there. We're just about to turn those javelin men either way to make a flank attack. You got the ace. That's it. End of activation. I'm off the hook, and the breakthrough has not been, when it's at its most vulnerable, it wasn't attacked. Meanwhile, on the left flank, it's really starting to look bad for these legionaries. I guess I should have stuck them in Orbis, but they kind of takes them out of the game a bit. As you can see, the cavalry's swinging around the far left. The light infantry's coming through the difficult terrain. Other units are coming across. But it's taking a long time. He's not getting much luck with the activations at all. And meanwhile, I'm going to try and win the battle over the other side and hope these guys got good armour and can hold on. So to the sort of centre left of the table, see the units on the left. The Chinese units are starting to push forward. The guys in the hill stuck there, need a bit more luck on the activations. And I'm just giving that ground really, and seeing how quickly the Chinese take it. And so meanwhile on the right hand side, more shooting coming in, but I got away with it this turn. So after some disastrous activations for my opponent, I basically got a free turn here to try and get a jump on those cavalry which have taken the backwards move. I have got the flank of the javelins, but the cavalry are just going to mop me up afterwards. So, taking the risk of the activation to turn, and then the diagonal charge, got the general for the reroll, and at some point I've had to move the light cav, and I was always thinking if they fail their activation, and I'm left with my general's cavalry unit being rear attacked by his blinking lights. But they got the 10, so that's good, they're in there. Didn't do anything, but at least they blocked off that light cav. And I continued doing the double attacks for the flank, and getting the reroll and activations, and actually got a couple of charges in to pummel that cavalry. And if you look closely down the bottom of the screen, you see the javelin's just standing there looking at those light infantry, and the elephant off screen just parked at the back doing nothing. So that flank charge, and I've also, in there, hope you still see it on the left hand side, the veteran legionaries have also turned. Now they know their flank or their rear is secured by the cavalry. They can start trying to roll up that flank. So back over the left flank, you see things are not looking so rosy, and the veterans, you can see my Roman veterans there, the red cloaks, they've moved to the right to try and get away from the overwhelming odds, because as you can see, the large unit at the top has turned to face the centre and was to start attacking them, or get a flank attack on the other ones. That's looking bad over here. And the light cavalry's come trotting around to try and get a rear charge. I mean, we hit on 8s, but still 2 dice, but again, look at all those high cards. I have to say, Roger's having a shocking day on the cards. He'll be saving his good draws for the tournament. All those 8s and 9s, very hard to get multiple activations. Yeah, so back over to the right-hand side. I didn't get all the good cards, although I had a cracking day, I have to admit. And you can see the Roman cavalry have failed to destroy that Chinese cavalry sitting right in front of them with a flank attack and all those multiple activations. There you go. So right in the middle, the legionaries, the veterans, went storming into that flank and destroyed them completely. So that was a real bonus, which meant the other legionary unit could do a diagonal attack on that large unit, start chipping away at it. I didn't want to advance in with the veterans because I want them there to turn around and start picking off the rear of that cavalry or the flank of those javelins. You see the cavalry has used the activation to turn and face the Romans now. So I don't have that open flank anymore. And then, what a turn. You can see the pile of cards there. The Roman cavalry, which I always describe as average or poor, not really heavy cavalry at all, just kept drawing again and again, and activating again and again, and hitting again, and went straight through that cavalry. Absolutely battered away through them. Going so well, less of a charge against the flank of that infantry was there. Beat those up pretty badly, which freed up the... You can see there's another red dot. They didn't follow up. I could have pushed my luck and kept going. Why not? Keep drawing 10s and activate again. But I had those fresh legionaries. So they've turned and then made the difficult activation because they finished off the charge. I think they got a flank as well then. So they're now stuck in the flank of that large unit. It's gone so well. Actually, my units are getting in the way of each other. There's a legionary can't get into the fighting there. So that Chinese centre just collapsed. And on the far right, you can see there's a standoff in the middle with the javelin guys, and the top corner, the light cavalry are also in a bit of a standoff. I think that command's demoralised anyway, so Roger can't shoot at me. I could chuck javelins while I got them, I guess, and getting very close to breaking them. And then you see a close-up of the carnage as they've just chomped through the centre. The legionaries have turned that flank open. And I'm looking up now, I've just realised I don't think that camp is defended. I'm not sure if you have to fight a fortified camp if it's not defended, but there was easy points there because the Chinese now getting very close to breaking point. And the bottom of the screen, you see this legionary's done the decent thing and turned and advanced as well to cover the flank. So getting very close to the break point. On the right hand side, those blinking light infantry in the woods have managed to get a hit on the javelins, which is very annoying. The javelins in the centre in standoff. I think by the song are demoralised, and I don't want to. I'm just going to try my luck. And the light cab in the top right hand corner. Can't do a lot to each other really. Demoralised, you can't attack me. And I haven't got the activations to throw javelins back, so they're just pinned in a corner. And this was the killer blow, just to rub salt in it. If you remember, I had that unit on the left, and because so much was going on in the middle, I didn't get round to activating these to form an orbis or turn round or do anything. But they got their rear open. This light cavalry's going to charge them. Alright, hitting on 8s with 2 dice. The dreaded ace comes up. And this brought me on to something saying, we had a discussion at the time, because Roger had 2 things to do. One with the general, and this one, which is obviously the great move. Do you do the general first or the great move first? And I always say do the general first in case this happens. And it got me thinking a lot more about detached generals, which I'll cover in a future report. Yep, so you see in the centre of the battlefield, camp at the top. So the Chinese units have turned to face. It's becoming a sort of lengthways battle now, which is a relief for the units I've got stranded on this flank, because they're now not going to get charged from all sides. They can afford to turn and face the other enemy and not get charged by this lot, because as you can see on the right, another legionary has turned up, and I've got the javelins in the middle. So actually just numbers start to tell. And there's an overview of that. You can see the legionaries now forming a nice line with everything facing to the right way, and we're fighting the narrow way across the table. And the glorious Roman cavalry, I shall never underestimate them again. I'm going to use them a lot. They've turned around after destroying all his units in the middle, come back, and of course ended the impasse between the two units of javelins by charging them in the flank and finishing those off. And as you see there, the unit I've got wounded, needs to rally. Otherwise, like, infantry might kill them. I think they've run out of javelins to kind of attack anyway now, but still annoying. So back over to the left side, and you can see the cavalry have charged in, done their lance attack. See that sort of wooden counter there? Done 2 successful hits. I've rolled double 3. Even if they're legionaries, they would have died there. So at least I lost the javelins, I suppose. So something back for the Song Chinese. And just imagine what could have happened with better activations if this had happened, say, 3 turns ago. This would have been a very different battle. But sometimes your army just doesn't do what you want it to do. So carry on battling our way through the centre. Neither of us really getting anywhere. And as you can see an overview there, there's the odd red counter appearing, but not much damage being done. And I realise I need 1 more point to actually win the game. It's got that bad for the Song Chinese. The only slight worry, of course, is that heavy cavalry unit romping through the middle, which is about to turn and roll up my flank, perhaps. It was too late to change the game, but it's more points. So I've gone in and just gone for and you see a couple of activations. And why not? This cavalry has done everything else this game, so they've gone diagonal and advance, set themselves up for the charge, got the second activation. Didn't do any hits. 2 misses. But with the rules, because they're evading cavalry, like cavalry, they have to evade. And unfortunately, that means they go off the table. I think their number was up anyway. And that was the end of the game. So, big win for the Romans there. So there's a little overview. As you can see, there's almost a second battle starting on this side of the table. With got a pretty solid line all the way across. And just wait for the others to turn up if it's a long game. But, yeah, I think it was a pretty convincing win. Good morale booster for me, gave me a lot to think about. I have to say, Roger had no luck at all with activations. This flank never got going, and it really was, if the Chinese could win this flank quicker than I could win the other flank. And everything went swimmingly on my side and very slowly on this side. I also did use the mobility of the legionaries to keep backing away, back away, move away. I think this is one of the few games where you really do gain by a little bit of tactical withdrawal. Not retreating, of course, we're Romans, we never retreat. But we just made ourselves a little bit of space, traded some space for time to let the rest of the army do the damage. So what I'm thinking with this army is I want to max up on my legionaries. They're going to be doing all the work. I love what the cavalry did. The elephants are useless. They're going. I'll probably lose one of the light cav as well to get more proper cavalry in there. So I'm probably going to use 6 legionaries. I have to is upgraded as much as I can. 2 cavalry, 1 light cav and a couple of javelins, and 1 light infantry for the camp, and that's my army. Looking forward to it. And I'll try and pop a video in before the tournament with the final selection, whether or not I got it painted, plans for the tournament, and then the battle report is coming up very soon. So hope you hang around for that, and please leave comments. I'd love to get feedback, see what people think, and hope you enjoyed it. And you have to say at the end of 2 of the strongest games, keep flipping.